they have found that while a lot of those ideas will flop and fail, some of their best business ideas and best products have come from that.
Hi, I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the Memory Makers Podcast,
the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and to make more memories.
Memory Makers, doodle-doodle-doo, Memory Makers, doodle-doodle-doo. I wish I had thought through all of the extra fast lyrics that come with Rockin' Around the Treetop or Rockin' Robin, but there you go, gang.
I think you nailed the toodle-doodle-doos.
Toodle-doodle-doo. Oh, those of you that listen to this, I apologize, but also don't.
Don't lie and say you're sorry when this is probably one of your favorite parts of these podcasts.
And you'd think I'd put more thought into it, but part of the charm, at least my own hallucination that I tell myself is that it's whimsical and cheeky, so we'll keep doing it.
You're very charming, Russ. Yes.
If you're listening to this in the car and need to pull over to bang your head against the windshield, I get it. But it's going to stay this way, so... well, welcome. We are excited to dive into today's episode. As you can see from the title, if you check that out, today is going to be about finding the pivot. Where and how we need to be open to this. What are hurdles that can get in our way if we need to move away? Hey, we started down the decision of going this route. We need to be able to make adjustments as we get in new information, or we know that there's stuff that needs to change and we need to kind of move away from that sacred cow, so to speak. Where and how can we find opportunities to pivot and do it in a way that's going to ultimately get us to where we want to go? You've heard us talk a lot about setting really good goals and being intentional and where you want to go, and this is part of that. So, Danny, if I was stepping on what you were going to say, I'm going to take it as the fact that we're in the mind meld right now.
We are in the mind meld. I was going to interrupt you, so it's not your fault. It's mine. But I just wanted to say that the word pivot, I think, carries a lot of baggage because of COVID. This is not necessarily about that. These are within the structure of your business and where you want to go in the future. What are the changes that you need to make in order to get to where you want to go? Those are the micro pivots, and sometimes they'll be bigger. This is not about COVID, so let's drop that baggage and look toward the future.
Yes, and also as some of our team, because I use the word pivot quite a bit, if you feel the need to send us comments with the Friends gif of Ross doing pivot on the couch on the stairs, feel free to send that our way, and we'll enjoy that. And because I'm exceptionally nerdy without intending to be, my tea mug here was also based on a group called Pivot Me. So shout out April Garcia and her team. But it's a mindset that you've got to have. And like you said, Danny, these are the things that if we are stuck in our ways and we don't change and adapt, then we only get what we've gotten in the first place. And so if we're going to really manifest the success and get it there, we got to be adaptable and overcome, adapt, and improvise as we need to. With that, I think I'd like to start, obviously some folks will view this as a pivot of, hey, are we making some updates to how we're doing our party packages? Or are we needing something that's more relevant to the customer experience? Or are we needing something in just how we're operating and running things internally, right? There's all of these different things that can be subject to pivots. And really, if for those of you that listened to the episode that we did with Armando, it was how do we keep our finger on the pulse to see what's working and what's not? This is a great build off of that, of now, okay, that we're finding what those opportunities of friction and where that's happening. How now can we really start to, lean into that and affect the positive change that comes along with it? I look at, some of our customers, like we said, it's very attraction specific. Hey, we've had laser tag. We want to change that out and we want to add in mini golf, or we have laser tag, but we've had it for 10 years. And so do we need to make a pivot to something else entirely? Or do we just need to add some new, razzle dazzle into that, and take advantage of some of the developments that have happened? Sometimes it's going to be, even from a marketing perspective, hey, we used to be focused on this age group of 14 to, or 9 to 16-year-olds, right? Whatever that is, those are probably not within the same bucket. But now our market has aged up and we need to be focusing towards these young professionals that are moving in because of the new companies that are drumming up new folks in our market. And so sometimes it can be more radical that way. Or like I said, it can be that operational pivot of, hey, here's how we're staffing stuff currently. Here's how we need to adjust in order to provide a higher level of service or impact our cost of goods sold, like whatever those pieces are. Really understanding two things. One, is it the root problem that you're getting to through those 5 whys and peeling back the layers of the onion? And two, if it is that root problem, what is the desired alternate outcome that we are actually moving towards?
So now that we know what the pivots could look like and what parts of your business that they impact, a lot of times we, as either business owners or leaders or whatever the case may be, we can resist change. We can resist the idea of making these adjustments. And there's a couple psychological challenges that go into this. And the first one is sunk cost fallacy. And it is the idea that we put so much effort, we put so much time, we put maybe even so much money into this thing already, we've got to see it through. Even if we get to the point where we're 60, 70, 80% of the way through, if we know that is no longer the path, it is illogical to just dump the rest of the money to finish it out, to have this not be the process, to have this not be the platform that we want to use, to have this not be the next attraction we want to add, whatever that is for you. Understanding that the idea of sunk costs, we have this tendency to say, oh, I've already put so much into this, I've got to see it all the way through. And while I think that there's value in being able to understand when to persevere versus when to back away from something, this, I think, is a little bit different from the idea of perseverance. This is using the data, which is something that Russ will talk about in the next section here. So number one is the sunk cost fallacy. The second one, and all of us, including myself, can fall into this trap as well, it's ego and attachment.
Yeah.
It's being able to admit that the original idea, the original plan isn't working the way that we expected it to, isn't giving us the results that we wanted. And we can, especially if any individual listening to this put a lot of their own effort into something, we can put on rose-colored glasses and, well, no, my baby's not ugly, and this actually really works. And we could try to explain our way around it all day. But when we can let go of ego and just look at something more objectively and realize, yeah, I was wrong about that, or this didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, and be able to teach our team how to recognize when we've made mistakes, admit it, and move on, that's a powerful tool there. And then one of the last pieces here is the kind of wait and see trap. This is where things aren't really going well, and they haven't been, and we know we need to change, but we're maybe a little bit afraid of the change, or maybe not excited about all the work that the change will require. And so we just kind of, well, let's just wait and see if it magically gets better. It just magically turns around. And some of these things, and it's helpful to recognize that the world won't magically change things very often. We have to recognize when we need to take action. And if there's something that requires our attention and our action, we need to give it that. Because when we put something into a dark corner and look the other way and say, oh, maybe this will just get better and I don't want to deal with that thing, I will ask you this: how often, for any of you listening, has that ever worked? How often is letting something just sit, and how has it ever just magically fixed itself? Has it ever just gotten better on its own? Probably not. There are things that we need to address, even if they're uncomfortable, even if they take work, even if there's internal friction within us or the rest of the team about the idea. We've got to be able to take action on it.
Well, and to your point on the wait and see side, Danny, like there's also, just because it's different or it's a change or it's something else, like you can prioritize and assign value to what these things are. And that way you can keep some of the small things small, or if you need to set aside time for bigger, hairier problems, great. Okay, we know that going in. So how are we going to then try to tackle that? And what criteria then do we use as we evaluate some of that? To you. I'm just agreeing with you. Sorry. I got excited.
For agreeing
I think that, I mean, you were talking even a little bit before the show of like, yeah, it's important to be able to look at these things, and it's like some stuff okay, if we look at it and put it down on paper and kind of demystify it, like not everything is the forever dooming, high level emotional basket that it can appear to be at first. And so demystifying that, I think you called it the haircut, the hat, the haircut, and the tattoo kind of decision framework.
Yeah, I can talk through that as well. This is something I just came across the other day, and I thought it might fit pretty well in this conversation about pivoting. Because when you have to make a pivot, you have to make decisions about what to do, where to go next, what action to take. And this is something from James Clear that I came across earlier this week. He's the author of Atomic Habits. And he said that there are 3 kinds of decisions we make as humans. The first is a hat decision. This is like taking off and putting on another hat. You can do this as many times as you want to. There are very little consequences. You can just make a decision, go, change it, go. It's very easy to be able to change your mind and try something else. Mm-hmm. Then there are haircut decisions. This is like getting a haircut. It's something that will stick around for a little while. And if you don't like it, you may look or feel silly. You'll have to see yourself in the mirror for quite a bit. But eventually, your hair grows out and you can try something different. Just takes a little bit longer than changing a hat.
Frosted tips.
Frosted tips all day.
Yeah. I surprisingly was not one of the people that went down that path. I had 4 older sisters that put the hard no on it. But yeah, I'm sure some of you out there will remember when that and puka shells were all the rage, and those can go away. So
exactly. Now, the last one are tattoo decisions. And these are the things that when we make these decisions, they're permanent. They're sticking with us forever. And no matter what we do in the future, there will be that decision or remnants of that decision always. And so this is a helpful framework to understand what kind of decision are you looking at? Because in my mind, humans, we can be very good at taking something that's a haircut decision with consequences, but not very big ones, but thinking it's a tattoo decision, and we can ruminate over it like it's a tattoo decision, and we can stress about it. It's like, just make a decision and go. It may not be the best one, but you know what? After you make a decision, you get feedback. And feedback is far more valuable than extra days or weeks or months of mental rumination and thinking to get something just right when it comes to these shorter term consequences. And then the most important piece here is when there are decisions that are the tattoo decisions, when there are pivots that are going to almost permanently change the makeup of your business or your staff or anything else, research and approach them calmly over time. It's never a time to make an emotionally based decision in the moment. Don't make, there's another line that I love that just popped in my mind. Don't make permanent decisions based on temporary pain. Don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Spend time, reflect, and calmly make your next decision, especially if it's going to be a very big one.
I love that. And I think that feeds into, again, like, how do we actually then approach these pivots? And looking at, one, shocker, use data, right? Like, and even if you don't have perfect data, like, start with some benchmarks and find ways that you can at least have something that at the bare minimum is an equal opportunity offender as far as being bad data. So that way we also don't get into this like correlation versus causation. Like, okay, it's somewhere to start, and we can get into it a little bit more as we sink our teeth into it. But okay, how are we, if you're a manager and you're trying to recommend a change or a new direction that you think is really important, one, understanding how the person that you're bringing that to, the owner, is going to interpret that, right? Like, what's going to be their primary motivators? Why do they need, how are you going to import the significance to them of how this impacts the guest experience? How is that impacting the bottom line? So some of these things may have financial impact, some of it's guest satisfaction, which then indirectly leads into financial performance. But what's really, who are you trying to get this change run through? And if you're on the ownership side and you're trying to make this change, you also need to be able to drill that downstream as well, right? Like, why is this going to make my employees' jobs better or create more of a secure future for them via, it's better business practice for us. It gives us more financial solvency through this, which means that we can offer raises or maintain hiring levels, like whatever that is. So think about who your audience is in either direction as far as assessing this change, and then using data to reinforce that. So that way it doesn't appear as an emotional response to something. Hey, yeah, like this comes with a lot of emotional pain, but here are also the nuts and bolts of why this is also a sound decision. Then making sure, and we've talked about this as well in previous episodes, but it bears repeating, the test and learn mindset, not being afraid to tinker and explore. The benefit of, okay, when we do make some of these small measurable changes, what are these things like? How do we see the compounding effect of those? So that way, if you do know, hey, the people that I'm trying to get on board for buy-in on this, they are change averse. Like this is going to feel really intimidating. What are some small decisions that we can make to be able to test this and show like, hey, this is something that warrants more investigation and more discovery around it, because we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what this could really do for us. And there's so many different examples. You look at, I think of like Craig Buster, in the example that he shared when he was doing an operator interview with us at Amusement 360 back when he was at Wild Island Coconut Bowl. And this was a massive pivot that they ended up doing, but they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. They were opening up a restaurant. They were going to do all of this stuff. Like they've gone down the path. They built it out, the restaurant, the kitchen, all of the things. And they had it open for 2 weeks, give or take, before they realized, whoa, this is just completely not, this is not working. And instead of trying to, and they also understood why it wasn't working. It wasn't just like, okay, this isn't working, we're throwing our hands up and moving in a new direction. They understood why and how is this not succeeding with how we are set up? Like, is this outside of our operational norm? Is, all of the different things that went to it. And they moved on from that project. That's an extreme example, and very few folks are in a position to be able to weather a storm like that. However, it shows you that if you see that this at its core is not going to be fundamentally successful, and we don't have a way of adjusting on a small level, like sometimes we're going to have to take bigger shakes of the Etch-a-Sketch in order to get there. And then there are other times where we've had locations that look at and say, hey, we're a trampoline park. We're, in this market. The landscape or the topography of our demographics is different than what it was. And so now we're going to change this and add more food and beverage, and we're going to take out certain attractions. We're going to replace those with different ones, so that way we can be more relevant to an audience that has the money to spend with us. And all of these things really can have a significant impact. But if you're not looking at the data of like, well, now this is what the demographic surveys from our audit are saying, this is what the new earning, disposable income is for our market. Like what we were built up for is no longer the case, and we have to be able to adjust. Otherwise our business is going to close, right? And Mondo had talked about this in a previous episode of not making a decision of, well, what happens if something goes wrong, but like, what happens if this succeeds? And thinking about of like, what are all the things that we gain if this goes well, and how do we make intentional decisions around that, but not staying in place from a position of fear, right? We so rarely, it's easy to pick things apart and see how it can go wrong quickly. You can also put things in place to either make decisions or mitigate or circumvent those problems, but really keeping it front of mind for you as to what happens if this goes really, really well. So that way we can give it everything that we've got and fully commit to it in a way that's going to actually move the needle.
So let's think about actionable steps. What can people do with the information? And I think that when you're looking at putting a new initiative into place, trying a new marketing campaign, adjusting an operational process, adding attractions, whatever that is, one of the things you could do is define an exit strategy for every initiative. And I think there's multiple parts to this. One is defining ahead of time. Russ talked about data. Okay, what are the metrics that you want to measure ahead of time? Hey, we're going to put this marketing campaign into place. Over the next 3, 6, 12 months, however long that timeline is, what are the metrics that we need to track to determine if something is successful? And what are the milestones we need to hit for this to be the right decision, for this to be a successful decision for our business, and be able to build in review points along the way so that as you get through, if it's a smaller decision, maybe a couple of weeks, if it's a larger one, maybe months or quarters or a year, to determine at some point down the line, when do we need to step back and say, this was not the best choice for where we want to go, let's try something new. Mm-hmm. And being able to have those defined ahead of time takes some of the ego out of the equation that we talked about before, and it makes it easier to make a decision on the data rather than on gut feelings or emotions or anything like that. Sometimes we'll have initiatives where you may not have all the data because you're in a, well, we don't know what we don't know necessarily. And those are the times when you do need to use your intuition. You need to use your entrepreneurial and leadership instincts and do the best with the knowledge that you have and make the decisions in the moment that you feel are right. We won't always have perfect data ahead of time. We won't always have perfect data in the moment, and that's okay. But this is something that you can start putting into place to make that a little bit easier. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is getting unfiltered feedback from your staff members, especially the frontline staff. They're the ones that are in the trenches, so to speak. They're working on these attractions. They're in the food and beverage. They're face-to-face with guests. They see the business from a different perspective than you do. And you also have more context and knowledge as the owner or the leader than they do, but they may have some really, really good ideas. And it can be very easy to get caught up in, using ego again as an example, to get caught up in, well, I know better and I know more because I'm the owner, and not want to fully listen to some of the ideas from our team. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're going to come up with ideas that are bad. They don't make sense and you're not going to do them, and that's okay. But it makes me think about something that I heard that Amazon does. And I'm not saying all of you have to do this, but it's an interesting perspective and a glimpse into how a very large enterprise that is one of the highest valued companies in the world operates. And they have this process where if someone brings up an idea to their manager, the default is yes. And in order for the manager to say no, they have to write out a full page memo of why they're saying no and send it to the entire staff. And the idea there is to build in friction to saying no, because they have found that while a lot of those ideas will flop and fail, some of their best business ideas and best products have come from that. For example, Amazon Web Services, AWS, came from one of those ideas. The instinct might have been to say no, but there wasn't a really good, the person had looked at it and said, there's not really a good reason for me to say no. I can't come up with a good case to say no. So let's just say yes. And then it turns out that's a huge portion of Amazon's revenue. Yeah. So it's an interesting way to glimpse the idea of decision-making and where ideas come from.
Yeah, and I think, another one, I'll give a shout out to Frank Price, right? He's always one that ironically, really advocates to people, you should not be this race to the bottom for the price point in your market, right? Like it's that, what was the Groupon, right? Like everybody started doing Groupon. It was this super low price point, and those customers that were most often leveraging that, the general zeitgeist for operators was not great. Like it's not the best folks that we want coming in. So you may be seeing a trend in your data where it's like, okay, our numbers are down. Should we actually increase our price in order to attract that higher, a little bit more, a higher echelon of the customers that we're trying to attract, because we can provide the value that goes along with that, but they're easier to manage. That's yada, yada. So sometimes I love that monthly assumptions check, Danny, just because we really do, like, is this just a hallucination that I'm telling myself? Who else has already done something like this, and what success did they have? What do they feel led to that, and really help them avoid some mistakes? So looking at all of these things, there are so many opportunities to be able to do it, both from your staff and from your peer network, but not being afraid to make some of those decisions, because yes, the overall batting average is going to, it's like a major league hitter. And look at me with a sports reference that, if it's a 333 average, means that they're only hitting, 1 out of every 3 times when they come up to the plate. But that's a rock star success rate, and that's how you really get those top tier performers and things like that. So knowing that all of these things, like, it's not perfect, but you're going to do what you can with what you got, and you're going to try to make informed decisions as you go along. Where can we make sure that we're being the most informed as we go through that process? So I love that. I think that that's a great spot for us to wrap up, and want to thank you guys for joining us, obviously, for this episode. If you liked what you heard, we'd always appreciate the 5 stars. Please and thank you.
And if you got ideas for future episodes, topics, or guests that you'd like to see on the show, follow us on social media, send us a DM.
And we'll always be coming out with our weekly episodes, so stay tuned for new operator interviews and other industry partners and expertise that we've got coming down the pipe for you. And with that, shout out to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s, making this week work, especially dealing with a under the weather Russ with his tea and his pivoting and all of the fun things. But really appreciate you, Mikey Mike, and thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one, troublemakers. Let the vibes sway you, friend.
Vibes.
Hot. Okay, well, that's just going to be fun to look at for the next hour.
Until you forget about it, and then it gets cold, and then you try to reheat it again, and you just with ants.
I'd like to be able to taste my next meal. By the way, did not plan to have a Pivot Me cup, but given our topic for today, I just saw that as I was looking. I was like, oh, fun, like Pivot Me for a Pivot podcast. Let's try it now, Mike. Nope.
Wow, that 7 seconds didn't do it?
Apparently not. Okay, so I figured it out. It was the mug that was too hot, not the liquid. So I was able to pivot how I was drinking my tea. I'm excited for Mike to just drop that in every single time that we say the word pivot.
Pivot!
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 I'm telling you right
Pivot!
now.
Pivot!
Now, don't do that.
Pivot!
Pivot!
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. I like it. Okay, cool.
All right.
Mike, I'll turn it over to you whenever you're ready, man.